Today, I'm going to be taking a deep dive, for the first time ever, actually. I will be taking a deep dive into this album, Harder Than You. I made a post about it, and I just wanted to follow up that post by explaining, or at least illustrating, what it is that makes this album valid. It is also an album that was a trendsetter in its own way. These guys were among the first to create music the way they were creating it, and I think that they should be noticed. I know it's a little too late for all of this now because we're 36 years past that point, but either way, recognition to me is eternal. There's a lot of music that we listen to, that was around before we were born, and there's a lot of music that was created in the peak of our musical exploration that will go on forever. It will outlive us. These guys didn't get the credit they deserved. Unfortunately, one of them will never see that credit. I'm sure he knew, he was aware of what they did, but it's unfortunate that, some of these bands that are out there putting out this music, they just don't see the success that they should have seen. And this is one of those bands. In my book, they are up there with Shudder to Think, Voivod, so many other bands. And not even stylistically. It's one thing to be in a different genre of music, but these guys, to me, are just as special as Jellyfish. So anyway, I'm gonna dive into this track by track. I would love to play these tracks for you as is and do some sort of commentary to them in real time, but I cannot do that. For legal reasons, I am unable to do that, and I don't wanna jeopardize this channel or this community. So I will, where I can, I will show you some of these things or illustrate some of these things for you, but I am not able to play the track. It's really unfortunate that I have to give you that news, but that's just what we're dealing with here. So from this first track, it opens up with Anthony Johnson. This guy, hands down, might be the most underrated drummer of all time. He's right up there with anyone who came before him and anyone who was around at his time. He locks in with this ridiculous groove and pocket to start off the album for a few bars, and then everything just rips into it. And you know right away that these guys are pioneers of groove metal from the get-go. Jimi Hazel starts tearing it up from the moment this track starts, and he gives you a little taste of what he's got as soon as Anthony Johnson lays down another one of his ridiculous grooves. If you like instrumentals as much as I do, you're gonna love this one, but don't get too comfortable because it just cuts you short at 2 minutes and 25 seconds. Now this is where the funk and hip hop come in. On this particular track, Rick Scatore, if I'm saying his name right, some people call him Rick Skater. I don't know why they say that. Maybe I'm saying it wrong, but I've always called him Rick Scatore. But anyway, I'm probably saying that wrong. If anybody knows for sure, or if by any chance anyone from 24/7 Spyz sees this video and you want to let me know if that pronunciation of his name is correct, I would love to hear from you. Anyway, the gang vocal, which you hear from the very first track, comes back again on this track. I love the way these guys use their gang vocals because it reminds me a lot of the way Cameo used to use their gang vocals. Speaking of Cameo, Rick Scatore's bass playing on this track, and on a lot of tracks, reminds me a lot of Michael Burnett, rest in peace, from the band Cameo. This guy was just a badass on the bass, and so is Rick Scatore, of course. The slap tone on these first two records is ridiculous. Like, there's just something about the way he graces that bass and the way he slaps it and plays it. It reminds me so much of those three people, or actually there's one I did not mention, but Prince is the other person. So the first person I think of right off the bat is Michael Burnett from Cameo. And of course I think of Larry Graham, and I also think of Prince because it's just got that Prince pop life kind of tone to it. Rick Scatore, he played a ESP jazz bass. Hazel, I know he played ESP, I know he played Fender, I know he played Stratocasters and stuff like that, and he would mod them and fix them up and set them up to his liking. From the start of this song, it is polka time. Right away, it's just like the polka standard. But then, just as you're starting to settle into that polka standard, it runs right into this institutionalized style verse from Suicidal Tendencies. Right away, you think of that song Institutionalized, and you're like, I'm not crazy, institution, you're the one that's crazy. This song is where you hear the military cadence that I had spoken to. I think you just say cadence, but you hear the cadence that I had mentioned in that post when I was talking about it. There are other bands, but the first band that comes to mind that seemed to really blend this into their songs was Quicksand.
I'm falling down on the downside, built on a weak spot, facts hiding in your mind, waiting on the bomb.
This one starts off with like an E Dorian, I believe, E Dorian mode. So it starts off with something like that, and then of course it goes into this groove. Every track on this record it's not like anything on here sounds derivative. If you know music well enough, you kind of hear their influences, but they are not plagiaristic by any means. These guys are very, very good at disguising their influences in a way. If you know what they're doing, you just give them the nod, because they pay homage in such a way that it's like you can't do anything but respect it, really. Fishbone had Freddy's Dead. 24/7 Spyz has Jungle Boogie. They made this cover their own. So many other bands have done these covers that have elevated or escalated their popularity. The Chili Peppers, who I think 24/7 Spyz is much better than them any day of the week. But even like the Chili Peppers, they had their Higher Ground, the Stevie Wonder cover. Jungle Boogie, a Kool and the Gang song. Kool and the Gang actually influenced Chic, and Chic is another influence on 24/7 Spyz, if you did not know that. But you find that out later in Gumbo Millennium. You see how much Rick Scatore admires Bernard Edwards in that track, for sure. And I'm talking about Don't Break My Heart, that track. So anyway, Spill My Guts is another hardcore style song. Spill My Guts is definitely the pit song. That would be a great live song. I'm sure it got a lot of people going in the pit. I know of the group Black Uhuru, but I did not know that they were the original. I did not know that they wrote Spoogie Reggae. So all that time I've been totally digging on that and thinking to myself, wow, this has a real strong Black Uhuru sound to it. But I didn't know until someone told me. It's real deal reggae. It sounds great. Jimmy's tone on this track is ridiculous. This is what, I mean, his clean tone is just something to die for, really. It's just amazing. So I could listen to him play all day. I love hearing everyone in that group play and sing. This track, if any of you have ever heard of the band The Urge, I saw them in a very tiny club. Actually, the first club where I ever played a gig back in, it was either 92 or 93. I saw them in this very, very small club called The Rec Room. Sometimes you guys will see me on this channel wearing a Rec Room t-shirt. That was like where I played my first gig ever. But anyway, I saw The Urge there, and they were touring off of Magically Delicious. So if anyone knows anything about The Urge, they also did a song that, it was actually their most successful song, where they had Nick Hexum from 311 in the video with them. You guys can look that up if you want. But that Tango Skin Polka definitely influenced. You can hear a little bit of that in The Urge when they're jamming out and playing. Another great band, The Urge. I highly recommend that you check them out. Because they're like, the best way to describe them is they're kind of like ska-core. They're sort of along those lines as the Mighty Mighty Bosstones, but they're different. And the vocalist is just, he's amazing. Like, he's a great vocalist for sure. Not saying that Dickie Barrett's not a great vocalist. He's great in his own way. Also a super cool gentleman. Like, he is awesome. I mean, like, I've met him a couple of times, and he's just the nicest guy ever. So I'm glad that, that they had success, on their scale. And I'm glad that the Mighty Mighty Bosstones had the success that they had. This might be my favorite track on this album. I was listening to a lot of Strength in Numbers and a lot of Gumbo Millennium, and a friend and bandmate of mine, also a roommate of mine, he says, man, he goes, I never hear you listening to Harder Than You. So I actually don't have Harder Than You yet. And he says, man, that's criminal. He said, there's one track on there, in my opinion, that's better than most, or at least half of Gumbo Millennium, and it's Pillage. He was not kidding. I absolutely love this song. It takes you on this journey. It just goes all over the place, but it drops into this breakdown in the middle that you just cannot deny. It is, and it just carries the song out. But that breakdown in Pillage, when he's like, let's talk about Pillage, when he goes into that, it is, it's crazy. And I'm sure that was a great pit song as well. I bet you they really got the crowd going with that song when they played it live. I really regret not seeing that band live.
Stud 100.
And this last song, this last track, it starts off with another cadence feel to it, but with a little bit more melody. And then it just drops into this jam, and it's a good closer to the album, and it's a good way to close it out. So that'll do it for my deep dive into Harder Than You. If any of you watching are fans of this album, please let me know what your favorite tracks are. What do you think was the best album from 24/7 Spyz? Were you one of those fans that just liked the first album and didn't really like anything they did after that? Please let us know in the comments below. Thank you for watching, and I'll have another video out to you soon.